Good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop-elect Vanessa M. Brown, and I'm your host and moderator for this evening. And I'm very excited to be here on tonight. This is the first day of Passover for those that celebrate the Jewish Passover. And so I say happy Passover to all of my Jewish siblings. And tonight we have some wonderful guests. We have a wonderful guest rather. But before we even talk about that, I need you all to do me a big favor. I want to welcome Facebook. I want to welcome YouTube. I want to welcome Twitter. I want to welcome LinkedIn and all of our social media platforms on tonight. You all know that you can listen to this on Spotify as well after the show is over. But we want to shout out and we want to hear where people are from. We're asking everybody on every social media platform to please share this, share this on your page, in your social network so that people can hear about this conversation. Of course, we have Chuck Hunt from Monroe, Louisiana. We say good evening to everyone. Sean Jenkins is here from Metro Atlanta. Grateful for Pastor Siegfried Benton from Temple Hills, Maryland. I had the opportunity to meet him in Charleston while I was eulogizing Mother Cynthia Gathers, and he was there as well. Grateful for Albert Reed from Colleen, Texas. Cousin, Reverend Beverly Scott Hudson from Philly is representing. Philadelphia is representing. South Jersey is representing. Pamela Green Moore. Sharon Gill from Pasadena. Karen Coleman from Boston, Massachusetts. Rhonda Height from St. Louis. Good evening to Deacon Marlene McLaurin. Bless you tonight. Marcia S. McNeil from Kennesaw, Georgia. Rose Hardy from Paterson, New Jersey. Bishop Rose Hardy. And listen, I'm looking for you to please make sure that you all share this Facebook Live. I promise you that we are about to have an incredible conversation with an incredible woman that is going to come before us. Really quickly, I know you all have been watching the news. I know that you all have heard and seen that Donald Trump was arrested on Tuesday, and he was arraigned in New York City. And I understand that there's a lot of controversy around that. But at the end of the day, we are all praying that justice is served. Yes. I see Deacon Michelle Wright on from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Welcome, Deacon Michelle. Listen, I need you all to share this conversation. There has been so much going on. The NCAA tournament for the women's basketball, I know you all watched that. Good, big ups to LSU for winning. They did an incredible job against Iowa State. That's been in the news, and there's some controversy around that. But at the end of the day, we want to celebrate LSU without bringing in the controversy over that. And we all know that there's always going to be some racism here in America, and it exists and it is here. And so we have to find ways to subvert that. You have to find ways to fight back in the ways that we know how, right? And I believe that is through cooperation, collaboration, and coalition, right? The 3 C's: cooperation, coalition, and collaboration. And so I'm hoping that we can all get to that as a society and as a people. And I'm so excited about this. I see Natasha Robinson, Professor Natasha Robinson, spent an entire month with us on Beyond the Gatekeepers. We are so glad for her and her wisdom and just her overall character and her persona. And she was just great and a breath of fresh air for us to be with her in conversation. So we're grateful for you, Natasha, Professor. We appreciate you so much. We have Bishop-elect Sonia Williams here, also faithful to Beyond the Gatekeepers. Atlanta, Georgia is in the building. We're so grateful for that. Again, Lewis Eaton, Boston, Massachusetts is here. Elisa Lewis, Sacramento, California is here. And so many great people are joining in on our Facebook Live. We're asking that you please share it. Not just Facebook Live, but YouTube is here. We want to welcome all of our YouTube folks that are here with us. We are grateful for your presence. Again, you can find us on Facebook Live on Bishop Yvette Flinders' page. And you can also find us on Beyond the Gatekeepers page on Facebook Live. We see L. Stanley Davis here with us on tonight. Grateful again. So let us get right to it. Somebody said, what is this conversation about? Why do we have this person here? It's because I like to read. And if folks tell me about a book or I know about something, I want to share it. And I want to share the wisdom of the author and of the writers and of the music and of the film and whatever it is that we're going to be sharing. I like to make sure that I share what it is that I need to do as it relates to that. So we have the Enneagram for Black liberation, the Enneagram for Black liberation. Return to who you are beneath the armor you carry. Return to who you are beneath the armor you carry. I want y'all to sit with that for a minute before I just bring her out. I want y'all to sit with that. This is going to be a powerful conversation. Maria Harris, we see you from Denver, Colorado. Thank you for being on. Everybody, we want you to share again. We have none other than Chichi Agorom. She's a writer, certified Enneagram teacher and practitioner, and host from Armor to Ease podcast. Please, our social media audience, let us receive Chichi Agorom. She is here to talk about her book, The Enneagram for Black Liberation. Hi, Chichi.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
We are very excited that you are here with us on Beyond the Gatekeepers, and we know that this is going to be an incredible conversation on tonight. And so we want to dive right in. Like our Facebook live audience and YouTube, they're already saying welcome to you. And so we're excited. I have a few questions right off the rip. We also allow the audience to ask questions at some point as well. Want to give you free reign to really talk about, because I don't really know a lot, although I have taken an Enneagram before. I don't know a lot about it. So I guess the first thing that we need to establish and lay a foundation is, what is an Enneagram?
Okay. So, the Enneagram, the simplest way that I describe it is a personality mapping system that talks about 9 different ways of being in the world. So, there are 9 different core stories that we have about who we have to be okay, who we have to be safe, to have access to love and connection, to belong. And each one of us has one of those stories that's kind of like the autopilot, the primary story that we hold on to, and we believe that we have to be okay in the world. Now, the invitation of the Enneagram is for us to realize that this story has been really helpful for us and can still be really helpful in the way that we interact with the world, with other people, with ourselves. And at the same time, there's more to us than just that one singular story. So if my story is that I have to be seen as successful in order to be loved or accepted or worthy, then part of what happens subconsciously with that story is that I avoid, I hide, I try to push away the parts of myself that don't fit into that story of success. So anything about me that doesn't seem shiny enough or successful enough or productive enough, I try to hide it. And in doing that, I'm disconnected from the fullness of who I am. I'm disconnected from receiving acceptance and love and care in the fullness of my being, not just the parts where I feel like I've worked hard to earn it, right? So that's kind of the invitation that the Enneagram gives us, is to recognize what is the core story I have always believed about who I need to be okay, to be safe, to be loved, and what else could be true about me if that story is not the only thing that's true.
Listen, you are unpacking tonight. You are unpacking tonight, and I'm already excited. I feel like, you are just revealing parts of me, but then also parts of who so many people are, right? Those of us that go to church, those of us that are in Christianity, those of us that are part of other religious, based traditions, right? Like, haven't been able to get in touch with who we are, and still haven't been able to get in touch with the things that make us feel safe and the things that make us feel loved. So I feel like you're lifting us to another level already, just from the start. Tell us, Chichi, what is the inspiration for this book? I know that in reading it, you tell a lot of your story, but tell us the inspiration for it.
Yeah, so I was I was in grad school training to be a therapist when I first heard about the Enneagram. And through a series of events, at first I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not interested. And then it kept following me, it felt like. And then I learned about the narrative Enneagram and their approach to working with the Enneagram, which is really focused on each person's individual story and lived experience. So instead of it being like, here's a box, here's a type that you fit into, and we know everything about you, in the narrative, it's like, how does this show up for you? Tell me about your lived experience. And so I was really drawn to that. And I started my training with them to become a teacher and practitioner. But it was a very white centered space, and the way that the Enneagram was being taught was also centering the experience of white folks, which the way that came across for me was a lot of the teaching around growth and healing and what that looks like was things like the path to growth, or that you're growing or healing when you don't need these core stories anymore. Now, in my book, I write about these core stories that I mentioned as armor that we all use. So each of us kind of has our primary autopilot armor that comes up, and we use it as a way to protect ourselves from pain and suffering and difficulty, and we need it to navigate the world. And what I was learning in my training was they were saying often that healing and growth requires you to live unarmored, to put your armor down and be able to just walk through the world undefended. And I was like, well, this works for a certain group of people who are protected and centered. But this doesn't work for me. So what does healing and growth look like for me and for people like me who still need their armor on a regular basis to navigate a world that's not often safe and not often just? And so that was kind of those conversations is where what became this book. That's where it started, of trying to understand. I really love this system. I love the invitation to really seeing myself as a whole person outside of just the one story I tell. But as a Black woman who lives in this world, I still need my armor. So what does that look like for me to be able to access healing and ease and joy, even while still needing my armor in the world?
Powerful. People are asking me, what are we talking about? We are talking about this book tonight. We are here with Chichi Agorom. She has written a book called The Interim for Black Liberation. Return to who you are beneath the armor you carry. You can purchase this book on Amazon. It is posted down here. You can purchase it. Yes, I see. Yes, on Amazon, and there are several other places. If you Google it, it's there. Pastor Sue has already dropped it all in every chat that there is that we have, so that you can know how you can get this book. This is a book that you want to have in your library, but it's also a book that you want to use so that you can practice some of the concepts or all of the concepts that are in this book. So you take a leap and you start talking about tools for Black liberation, right? You just spoke about that a few minutes ago. And I believe that it was your intent to write this book, but in terms of liberation, but you say something that's very key. You say liberation is everyone's work. It's not just the work of those harmed by systems of oppression. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, liberation is everyone's work. It's a collective. Um, it's collective work. It's not just the work of the people who hold marginalized identities. It's not the work of the people who are burdened by the systems of oppression or harmed by the systems of oppression only. And we, I feel like it's thrown around, especially since the last 3 years, this idea that our liberation is bound up with each other, that our freedom is bound up to each other. And yet it's still talked about, thought about, like, for us to get free, for us to experience liberation, the people who are the most harmed by the systems have to be the ones at the forefront of the fight, which is typically what happens. Like, I started the book by talking about why I'm centering Black women in it, because Black women tend to be at the forefront of the fight for liberation for all people. And so part of why I say this, particularly with the Enneagram, is because I believe that we can use the Enneagram as a tool to understand not just what is the armor that I use, how do I create space between myself and this armor so I have more access to choice and to ease and to rest and to play and all those things, but also, especially, this is true for all of us, but I would say particularly for people who hold power and privilege within our society, how does my armor, how can my armor also be used as a threat or as ammunition that harms another person? If, for example, we're talking about it in metaphors, so very specific examples. If I believe, for example, that let's say I have to be seen as helpful and generous and somebody who takes care of everybody else and make sure I'm always available when people need me. If that's part of my core story of who I have to be seen as lovable, good enough, all of those things, then subconsciously that story can also be the thing I hold other people to. So I can start to judge, criticize, diminish the fullness of your own humanity because you don't show up in the same way that I do, because I believe that that's the only way to be. The only way to be acceptable is to be helpful. So if you are not helpful, there's something wrong with you. And it takes a lot of practice and work to realize, oh, that's my story. That is not necessarily true. It's just that I have always believed that I need to be helpful in order to be loved. And so I'm now holding everybody to that same story subconsciously. And so this is where I think bringing attention to what our core stories are, what our armor is, also serves collective liberation, because it helps us realize how not only are we keeping ourselves bound by these singular stories, we're also kind of forcing other people around us to live within our singular stories. And there's so much more to us than just the one story. The one story is not it can be true. It's true in certain situations. I didn't say this earlier, but our Enneagram stories come from real life experiences when you are growing up, from real, experiences of feeling like you didn't belong, or that you were criticized, or that you were not good enough if you didn't do everything perfectly, or whatever the situation. So it came from real experiences. And so the invitation is to honor the fact that I did need this story to survive at some point. This did help me navigate, my childhood, my family, whatever else was the case. And what else could be true today if that story is not the only thing that's true?
That's right. So it can be true, but do I always need this story to
Right.
move me forward, right? Because I don't it was true when I was 5, it was true when I was 10, it was true when I was 15. But is it true now that I'm 25? Right?
And it might be true in some places today.
Yes,
But that's why
even
we have choice, right? To say, maybe in this conversation, I need that armor. But
mm,
do I have access when I'm alone by myself to be able to put the armor down, to know that the armor is not me, it's not the fullness of me, right?
yes,
Or am I armored even by myself, um, alone, right? At
yes.
home, or with
Mhm.
close people who really do love me and are safe people?
Yes. So you have given, first of all, let me tell everybody that you can get this book by purchasing it, but we are going to give away one copy of this book tonight. If you type hashtag beyond the gatekeepers, no spaces, hashtag beyond the gatekeepers, all one word, all one, got a hashtag, because people get on, they say, oh, I don't never win. Well, sometimes you have to just hashtag beyond the gatekeepers. Make sure you put all one word so you can win a copy of the book tonight. Right. And so I also want to thank you all for watching Beyond the Gatekeepers. We are doing current events through a theological and justice informed lens. And this came up for me because I was actually taking a class and they actually recommended this book. Right. And they also asked us to take an Enneagram. So it wasn't my first time taking an Enneagram, but it's probably like my second time, maybe. I think the first time was a very, very long time ago. So maybe like 20 years passed since I took another one. I also know that I was reading somewhere that people consider it witchcraft, which is like a whole crazy notion. But, at the end of the day, I love this. It is from what I'm reading and what I have read, it focuses on core motivation and personality tests, just like Myers-Briggs, right? Type indicators, something like that, right? Mm, yes, no, tell me.
Kind of. So
Kind
I would say the main difference between this and the Myers-Briggs is the
of. Mm-hmm.
Myers-Briggs focuses on your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you an introvert or extrovert? Are you organized or more, laid back? And the Enneagram focuses on your core motivation, which is
Mm-hmm.
very hard to tell from the outside just based on behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you and I like to keep our house is really clean and organized. But I
Mm-hmm.
might be motivated by a completely different thing than you are, right?
Yes.
Maybe you're motivated to keep everything clean because you have a story that says, if things aren't perfect, I'm not good enough. And maybe I'm motivated to keep everything organized because I have anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's not organized, it makes my anxiety worse, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't really know what the core motivation of another person is from the outside just by base or just by behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why one of my little soapboxes about the Enneagram is that we don't type people, we don't tell people, you are this type, because it's really a journey of exploring what is motivating me, you know, beyond, okay, I'm noticing that I'm doing these things, but what is the core motivation underneath? What's the core story underneath?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have 9 of those.
9 of those, and we're going to get into that. Thank you for bridging me right to where I need to be. We have 9 of them, and in your book you start with the 9th one. But before you do that, you go to the body center. And I want people to know what's in this book and what they are going to get a taste of, right? I think that's important. And particularly, this book is for everybody, but particularly for Black women. I want us to really center in. I want y'all to share this conversation with as many people as you can share it with, particularly Black women, Black trans women, whatever. Just share, share, share. You take us to the body center. Tell us more about the body center before we get into type 9 adaptability as armor.
Oh, we're really going to go through it all.
we're
Okay.
gonna we're gonna delve as far as we can without giving them too much information, because we want them to actually read the book.
Yes, of course, of course, of course. Okay. So the Enneagram is divided. Like I mentioned, there are 9. I don't know if, let me see if I can show you the diagram. I don't know if y'all can see that, but that circle is the map. And so there are 9 different types, 9 different core stories. And the Enneagram is divided into 3 centers of intelligence: head, heart, and body. We all have all 3 centers of intelligence. There's just one that's kind of our primary center of intelligence that we use automatically to process things, to gather information, that sort of thing. So I'll answer about the body. I just wanted to say that there's 3. So body, heart, and head, and we have all 3 body types. The body center of intelligence is where we process information through our like felt sense. So if you think about the fact that, like, what is this statistic? I forgot. I think it's our body takes in 13 million bits of information per second, but our brains can only consciously process like 5. And so your body, like right now, my body knows what the chair beneath me and behind me feels like. It's sensing temperature. If there's like noises around, I'm picking up all of that information. So body types are very aware of like what is happening in the body and in the environment, but they also are very instinctual people, instinctive. So it's like, or intuitive is the word I'm looking for. It's a very black and white energy here. So I like you or I don't like you. This is good or this is bad. This is right or this is wrong. Very much kind of that kind of energy.
No gray area.
Yeah, the gray can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
The gray can be easier for type 9, but in general, there's this sense of, because that's how our bodies operate. Like it's safety versus unsafety, pain versus pleasure. So everything is kind of in this binary space. And body types are primarily concerned with issues related to control, power, worth, and belonging. Worth and belonging are the primary needs here. So the idea is I have to, with the three different types there, I have to do something, I have to be a certain way to be able to have access to worth and to be able to have access to belonging. And this is where we see the core stories that come up for body types. So then specific to type 9, 9 is known as the peacemaker or the mediator on the Enneagram. And I write about the armor of nines as adaptability. It's this idea that I always have to be adaptable, easygoing, chill, flexible in order to have worth or belonging. I can't ask for too much. I can't take up too much space. I have this visual of nines as like, I want to make sure I can stay in the room and nobody kicks me out. But the best way for me to do that is to just stay in the corner and respond. Like if you say, hey, could you grab me a glass of water? Then I can come out the corner and go get you the water. But if I stay in the corner, I won't make anyone mad. I will, like not cause too much drama so that somebody kicks me out of the room. And so it's this stance of I just got to be as adaptable and flexible as possible. So nines tend to avoid conflict. They tend to avoid expressing their own needs because to us, it might feel like, oh, I want to know what you need. But to a 9, that feels like potential conflict. Because what if I tell you I want X and you want Y? And now I feel like, oh, I'm asking for too much. And if I take up too much space, they're not going to want to be with me or they're going to kick me out. And so there's a lot of just kind of making yourself small in order to belong, in order to have.
This is good, Chichi. This is good. We got 2 questions. I want to give way to the questions. Remember, if you want this book, you're going to either buy it, yes, or you're going to win it tonight by typing Beyond the Gatekeepers, right? You're going to win this book. But remember, we're only giving away 1 book. But Bishop-elect Sonia Williams has a question. And so I want to read that question for you. It says, when is it ever safe to unpack power or lay down your weapons for the African American woman who has been groomed by society and family to be the strong Black woman? And how do we lay it down without guilt or ridicule?
Ooh,
That's a
that
lot.
is the question, right? And that is part of why I think that this work is powerful, because there aren't many spaces where it's safe to lay down that armor. That is just the reality of the world that we live in. And so my response to that is, and part of how I use this in Enneagram work is, how do I create those spaces within myself? What I have found to be true for all of us, and also especially for Black women, is that because we have to be armored so often in the world, out there in all these spaces, when you do it for so long, you start to think the armor is you. Like, I am nothing other than a strong Black woman. So I become disconnected from the other parts of myself, the other things that are true about me, even when there's nobody else there, even when it's just me or just me and a partner or whatever. And so part of the practice is being able to create, I described it as creating space between me, Chichi, and my armor that is strong and tough and can handle anything. In this space I've created, I have access to choice. I can choose to put up the armor and say, this is not a safe space and I need my armor here. And I have choice to say, I think this is a safe space. I can practice putting my armor down. Also, it's building our body experience of what safety feels like. Do you know what it feels like in your body when you are actually safe? Are you safe with you? Because in many ways,
That's good. Are you safe with you?
are you safe with, yeah.
Because a lot of times people talk about feeling unsafe and it's always about somebody else
Mhm.
or about a particular location or a particular experience. But that's a really good question to have to ask yourself. Are you safe with yourself?
Yeah,
Because how do you treat yourself?
right.
What is your self-talk about yourself?
Hmm.
Right? Do you lift yourself up? Do you encourage yourself, or do you beat yourself down with all of the things that you said are in your subconscious mind
Hmm.
about your single story?
Right, right. And
I
how we
like this. This is so good.
how we do one thing is how we do everything. So
Mhm.
again, if my story is I have to be this certain way, we're talking about the 9, I have to be adaptable, I have to be flexible, I can't ask for what I want with other people.
Mm.
Chances are I'm doing the same thing with myself. I'm not even making space when it's just me with me to say, what do you want? You are worthy enough for me to pause and listen to. What do you want? Like if I'm not doing that with myself, I'm not building my own felt sense of safety so that I do have access to being able to put down the armor when it's me and when it's with people that are safe and that I trust. And so I think, I mean, there's a lot more that could be unpacked there, but I think that
Absolutely.
that's one of the things I would say in response to that question.
That's great. I see more questions, but I want to go to type 8.
Okay, that's
And
great because type 8 is I think of Black women in America as having this as an additional layer of armor, even if type 8 is not your primary core story. It's like an additional armor that you have to carry. Type 8 is known as the protector on the Enneagram. And 8s believe the core story is I have to be strong. I have to be powerful in order to have access to worth and belonging. They're still in the body type, so it's still that core need for worth and belonging. But I have
mhm,
to be strong and powerful. And for
mhm,
an 8 in general, strength is a very rigid definition. Strength means I cannot be weak. I cannot be seen as, I can't be vulnerable. I can't be seen as
mhm,
weak. I can't allow myself to be touched by,
mm,
the world, the external, as a way to keep myself safe. So the
mm,
way to stay, to the way to have worth and belonging and also to be safe to some degree is to make sure that I have this wall
mm.
between myself, my tender, vulnerable self, and the rest of the world. In reality, 8s are like soft little marshmallows on the inside, like really tender, really soft.
Mhm.
But remember, I was saying at the beginning that these stories are formed from real experiences because their tenderness was taken advantage of and because they were harmed in some form in their formative years, they learned to create this worldview that says people are not to be trusted. Everyone is out to get you. You have to always be on guard. You have to be strong and you can't trust people,
Yes. Yep.
right? And that's a very common, like, that's, I'm not, 8 is not my primary story, but that's
It's a common story, and
it's what
even
I
it
understand.
can be passed down,
Oh, yeah,
right? So
so
like it
true.
some of that is generational
Mhm,
culturally.
mhm.
Like, where black women were not safe, right? They could not, you know, they had to protect themselves, they had to protect their children. We can go all the way back to the days of enslavement and talk about how that's passed down even through the DNA.
And that if you show vulnerability, it's punished, like
What you doing crying? Why you crying? Straighten yourself out.
yeah.
You better stop all that crying over there. Like it's that's a thing. That's like a real thing.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And it's passed down. And so we have this story that says, I cannot be strong. So back to the last question that I answered, then it's like, how are you with you? Do you know how to hold the vulnerable parts of yourself when it's just you? Or are you holding yourself internally to that same story? 8s tend to be, whether with themselves or other people, they don't want to face anything that feels like weakness in themselves or in other people. I was going to say this earlier with their definition of strength, it can be even something like your body needing rest feels like weakness to an 8. Like asking for help feels like weakness. Needing to go to the doctor feels like weakness. Like I should be able to handle anything is kind of the mentality. And so there's not and that's not reality, but that's the story that powers 8s, right? And so yeah, I won't say too much more, but that's
That that's awesome. So we have another question. Um, could this protective wall be this armor be one simply saying F society?
Wait, say that again. Where is that one?
This is 838. Could this protective wall be one simply saying F society?
Um, yeah, it could be, but it's more than that.
Okay. It's deeper
It's
than that.
it's deeper than that. It's connected to, again, like our history, the things that we experienced in our formative years, and what that taught us about like what we're allowed, who we're allowed to be, and who we believe we have to be okay. But I also want to say that the way that I think about and work with the Enneagram, especially as armor, is that you have your primary armor, which I've already talked about. But I think for many people, we have multiple layers of armor, especially
Mhm.
for Black folks.
Yes.
So my primary armor is the 4. But like I was just saying with the 8, that's an additional layer of armor that I have on top of my 4 armor that says I can't show my vulnerability. I can't let you see or think that I'm weak. That's an additional layer of armor. There's
Yes.
another one that I think of as very, as part of the cultural armor for Black folks in America, which is the 7, which we haven't gotten to. But the 7 armor is about optimism. It's about,
Hmm.
you know, I will drown and die if I pay too close attention to all the things that are painful and limiting.
Hmm.
So I'm going to laugh. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to use memes and humor as a way to like keep myself light so I can avoid the things that are heavy. That's another layer of armor. There's another,
Somebody says, is it also that they spend a lot of time in future imagining
for which type?
for the type 7?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Yes.
that is a big part of that. They
Hmm.
have a hard time being in the present. It's about
Hmm.
what's possible out there because the present feels like it could be too limiting.
Hmm.
There's another layer of armor there around, like this is the 6 armor of predicting what could go wrong.
Hmm.
So, like, what's coming around the corner, and how can I be prepared for the terrible things that could happen ahead? So, there's all these layers of armor that we carry, which can make it even harder to get back to who am I outside of these stories I carry? Who am I outside of the armor and my survival strategies? You know, um, which is the work and the invitation. That's part of our liberation.
And so part of that invitation and that work, once I start unpacking this stuff and I'm trying to figure out who I am without having to use this armor and feeling safe enough to not use this armor, would you say that a person would absolutely need a therapist to help them through that process? Because it's almost like taking off all of this, unshielding themselves and being vulnerable, not knowing what to expect.
I think you would definitely need support, whether that's a therapist, whether that's a coach, whether, if you are lucky enough to have good friends who are um, attuned and can hold space, but you definitely would need support because one of the things that happens when you begin to create that space and like make space between you and the armor is a lot of the things that you've been avoiding show up. They're still there. One of the things I noticed in my process was a lot of grief. There was, um, I wasn't expecting to feel as much grief as I did, but it was this realization of I've held on to this story my whole life and convinced myself, like I truly, truly, truly believed that I had to be this one thing to be lovable. And it wasn't true in all those situations. Like I could have had access to love and care and support if I just relaxed into the present instead of like holding on to this tight story. And there was a lot of grief around the care that I pushed away because it didn't fit into my story, the love that I pushed away because it didn't fit into my story. So having a safe space, a safe container to process the grief. Sometimes there's, I have worked with people where what comes up for them is anger, because it's like I'm finally giving myself space to look back to why this armor was even formed in the first place. And now I'm real mad because I shouldn't have experienced that. And that shouldn't have been the way they showed up for me. And so having space to process that, having space to process, there's fear that comes up. I was on my podcast, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with Tracy Michelle Lewis Gidgets, who is the author of Black Joy. And
She's been on the show before. She's
oh, she
actually,
has.
yes, she has.
Great. And we were talking about, because her book just won an NAACP award, and we're talking about that. And yeah, I know. And she, she brought up this point of like, one of the things I'm noticing now is fear of, if I don't need this in the same way that I needed it before writing. If writing was the only way she felt like she had a voice, it was like a form of armor. If I don't need it in the same way, who am I? And that brings up fear, right? So there's all that to say, there are a lot of things that can come up when you are doing this. And so having support is really helpful. And also just a reminder that those feelings are part of the process. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea to create space between yourself and the armor. It doesn't mean that you will be unsafe. The invitation is to be present with what comes up, what arises, to hold that with compassion and care, because that's actually what little you needed back in the day and they didn't get, which is why we formed these stories. So holding yourself with compassion and care, and then just allowing what's there to be there, which I think is the hardest part when I'm working with people, is that we want to, we see the thing, it's like, okay, I'm doing the thing that I shouldn't be doing. And now it's like, I want to fix it. I want to change it. I want to make it something else. And actually, really, the most powerful thing is just to allow it to be there. Allowing is not the same as, condoning. So if what I'm noticing is I'm having, terrible thoughts about a friend or a family member, allowing it to be there doesn't mean I'm saying it's great that I'm having these thoughts and I'm going to act on them. It's just to say, can I create some space and say, interesting. I'm having these thoughts about this person. I wonder why that's here, with curiosity and kindness, because then that allows us to create enough space for something different to arise.
So, first of all, if you're just joining, we are listening to having conversation with Chichi Agorom. She is the author of the Enneagram for Black Liberation, and you need to get this book, Return to Who You Are Beneath the Armor You Carry. You can purchase this book on Amazon, but you can also put down hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so you can win this book tonight. We're having a free book giveaway. We want to also invite you to ask questions. If you have a question, and for Chichi about the Enneagram, we're not talking about a whole bunch of stuff. This is a focused conversation about the Enneagram. If you have a question directly about this book, her work, please make sure that you put down question first, and then so that we can recognize it as a question, and then we'll go through it. I'm going to read through a few comments and we're going to get back to the conversation. And this was thank you for saying this, Bishop-elect Sonia. She said, it took me more than half my life to just relax my shoulders. I was always in a fight or flight posture. I understand that in a very large way. I really do. Um, Bishop Rose Hardy says, love this conversation. We'll definitely get the book. I've been in an Enneagram women's group 2 years, and I'm the only Black woman. Your book will be a new revelation for me.
Listen, I'm not trying to take you away from your group, but I do run a cohort for Black women around the Enneagram called At Ease, and the
Yeah,
next one starts in
absolutely.
May. So
Listen, go ahead on. This is so, this is a conversation. When we talk about Beyond the Gatekeepers, we talk about everything. So it's not just for Black women, Black men, white folks. Everybody comes into this particular conversation. We talk about current events through a theological and justice informed lens. And when something catches my eye, I always read it, but I will send people to your group because absolutely they belong as a part of this group. And I believe that you gave us your website, and your website is www.chichiagorom.com. Very simple. It's just her name, right? All one word, www.chichiagorom.com. And then she has a podcast, From Armor to Ease, and you can find out about that podcast as well. I've been looking at it. I've been seeing you. I think you do it on Instagram sometimes too, right?
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Listen, I need you all to uh continue on with the conversation. If you have questions, make sure you put the word question. I want to continue on with this with Chichi, and I've got some questions. I want to jump over to type 1.
Okay.
The perfectionist.
The perfectionist, the last one in the body center.
Last one.
Perfectionist, the core story for the one is I have to be good. I have to be a good person. I have to do the right thing in order to have worth or belonging. And so for ones, a lot of their energy is focused on what needs to be corrected within themselves and people around them, and society as large. There's this desire and drive to make things as they should be, which makes it really hard often to offer any appreciation or acceptance of things as they are, even within yourself. So ones tend to avoid making mistakes, being bad, being wrong, sometimes their own anger, if they categorize anger as bad. Good people don't get angry or don't blow up, and so they might ignore or avoid their own anger. And so that's the core piece of this story. I think of evangelical Christianity as one culture. In there are many variations to this, but I think just as a general, I think that this particular type of armor of like, I have to be good, I have to be perfect, can easily be found within conversations around like being the right type of person in order to have belonging, in order to have worth, which can sometimes then be in contrast with things like, oh, but it's not anything you do that gets you. But there's still this story around I have
to be good.
Have
That's
to be
right.
good.
It's true.
And so it can be really hard when you have that additional layer of armor to be able to create some space.
Mm-hmm.
Say, what is good about me as I am in this moment, without effort, without trying to fix and control. My invitations for ones usually is thinking about the sunset and like how, when you're watching a sunset unfold, you're just looking at the colors and enjoying what's in front of you. You're not, I don't think most people are sitting there like, if it was just darker over here, and if there was a little more pink here, and if it was a little bit more orange, you're just accepting what is, and tomorrow there'll be a different sunset. And that's sort of the invitation for ones is, can you bring practice to being able to notice what is already good in this moment without needing to be approved?
These are all messages. This is this is like a sermon all broken up. This is serious. We have a question. I want to ask that, and I want to go to something else. Deacon Marlene McLaurin has asked a very good question. Is one type potentially a combination of more than one?
No. So some might seem similar, but there are 9 distinct core stories, 9 distinct types that aren't really a combination at all. I could say more, but I don't want it to be.
No. Okay, that's good. And so let's talk about type 2, the givers.
Yes, this is the heart center. We're moving into the heart now.
Okay.
And heart types in general, the concern here is about getting love, connection, approval, and heart types believe that you have to do something to earn your relational keep. Just being who I am, just existing, is not enough to be loved. I have to do something to earn that. So there's a lot of that language that we'll see across types 2, 3, and 4. And when that core need for love and connection and approval is not there or is threatened, what comes up for heart types is a lot of grief and shame. Shame because there's this idea that like who I am, again, is not enough or is bad. And then grief at the loss of connection with my full self. If I think about the heart center as like the image management center on the Enneagram. So these are the people who are constantly, they want to be seen a certain way. They believe they have to be seen a certain way to be loved. And so they're constantly managing their image. And so there's grief that comes up when you realize I've spent so much time polishing this image, I don't even really know who I am anymore. So that's overview of the heart. Type 2 is known as the helper or the giver on the Enneagram. And a 2's core story is, I used them as an example earlier, I have to be seen as helpful and generous and giving in order to be loved. The only reason why people love me and want me around is because I take care of them, because I anticipate their needs, because I, will put my stuff aside just to show up for them. And so what they avoid is their own needs. They don't want to be seen as needy. If your story is I'm only loved if I'm seen as helpful, then I definitely don't want to be seen as needy, because then you will reject me. You'll go find somebody else who can meet all your needs and not ask you for anything in return. The difference, to the point of like types being similar, the difference between the 9 and the 2, because they can sometimes look a lot alike, is that 2s have more like active energy. So I'm gonna go look, even if you don't tell me you need anything, I'll be thinking about, well, I know that like she really likes this type of coffee, so I'm still gonna drop that off anyways. Like there's a lot of active. Sometimes they manufacture needs just because they want to be helpful. Versus a 9 where, again, they're in the corner waiting for you to ask them. If you ask them, then they'll say yes, but they're not going out of their way to be like, I'm going to figure out what you need. I'm going to anticipate it, and then I'm going to help you. So there's the 2. I think a lot of women are socialized also to show up, the right way as a 2, kind of take care of everybody else. And so my encouragement with that is to say, if you think you're 2 first, I would encourage you to explore the other types as well, because for a lot of women, they'll type as 2s first, because that's how we're conditioned societally to, think about the right way to be a woman. So
That's funny because somebody just said, I thought I was a 2 for 3 months.
yeah, it's a
That
lot
was
of
good.
people. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not actually. I have a friend who thought she was a 2 for years, and turns out she's an 8. But she
Wow.
was in like a space where they were like, no, the right way to be is generous and helpful and take care of everybody else. And yeah.
And the romantic?
The romantic type 4. The core story here is I have to offer something that is different, that is unique, that is special, something that nobody else is offering, because that is the only reason why you will love me. If I'm just the same as everybody else, if I don't stand out in some way, there's no reason for you to pay attention to me and to love me. And so what they try to avoid is being seen as ordinary or boring or inadequate. There is this deep desire to be seen as something special, something different. And the core fear here is around abandonment. So if I'm not different enough, if I'm not offering something that's exceptional, that you can get somewhere else, you will abandon me. And so there's a lot of energy spent in, and this could look like a lot of different things. There are stereotypes that 4s, wear bright colors or are all like poets and artists, and that's not necessarily true. This is my armor personally, but I grew up in a society where art and creativity was not important. It was like, throw that to the side. So I don't look a lot like the behavior of a 4, but it can be like, I need to be different in the way that I see the world. I need to be different in like the choices that I make or things like that. But there is this deep desire, the story that says, if I'm not offering something that's unique and exceptional, there's no reason for you to want to stay or love me. And that's that story.
And so, Chichi, this information is not just good for women, but it's also good for men.
It's good
It's
for
good for
everybody.
everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is
This
good for
is
everybody. So I don't want, I know that we've talked about women a lot, but I don't
mhm.
want, even some of the men that are on or whatever to think that this is about everybody. This is about how you move in the world in terms of relationship, in terms of who you are as an individual. And I want you to make sure that you take that message with you. And so I think that we talked about the body, we talked about the heart,
We
right?
didn't talk about type 3 in the heart.
Okay,
There's
let's
one
get
more.
to it.
We
What is
skipped
it?
that one, and then it's just the head left. Type 3 is the performer. This
The
one,
performer.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. This is the one that the US overall culture is usually talked about as being a 3 culture. So 3 is the performer. And the story here is um I have to be seen as successful. I have to be seen as capable in order to be deserving of love. So 3s do this thing where they have, it's like there's me here, and then there are all these roles I play. Maybe I have the role of mom, wife, and business owner. And these are like three distinct roles, and I have to be seen as successful in all these three roles, otherwise I'm not deserving of love. And so they play the role so well and for so long that they really have this fear, and this is part of that shame thing I mentioned, this fear that outside of the roles that I play, there is nothing lovable about me. If I'm not a successful blank, fill in the blank, then there's nothing else that's lovable about me. So what they try to avoid is failure. They don't want to fail. Often, if you ask a three, tell me about a time when you have failed. I do this because we do typing interviews in the narrative practice. And every time I ask somebody who ends up being a three, it's like, I'm having a hard time trying to think about a time that I failed. Like I can't think of that. And it's like this immediate, I can't even allow myself, because for the three, it's not just I attempted something that didn't work out. It's I am a failure. And I can't allow myself to feel like I'm a failure. Otherwise, all this work I've put into this image and these roles was for nothing, right?
So tell me again, where does these stories come from?
They come from childhood. So
They
imagine,
come
let's say
from
with the
childhood.
three, let's say for a young three child, they notice that the only times I seem to get attention and love and the approval of my parents is when I come home with straight A's, or when I I was the fastest person at, the track meet or whatever. Like the only time I get love and attention and I feel, deserving and I feel like somebody is seeing me is when I excel. Then that becomes wired. Our brains are wired for survival. And so it's like, oh, this is how you get love. Okay, now I got a tight fist. I was naturally good at this, but now I'm tight fisting around it to say this is the only way, because I don't get love just by being. I get love by being exceptional, by what's the word? Excelling, succeeding. And so that's what, it starts there. And then over the course of your life, you keep tightening around that story until it becomes so subconscious, you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. And that's why you put so much energy and effort into the career or whatever it is, because it's still that same story that says I'm not lovable if I'm not, exceptional, if I'm not successful.
A lot of this is just really real talk, and it's difficult to listen to, because if you're in those spaces, like, you see yourself, you hear yourself, you know that this is real. Like, this is because it's real, because it's me. It's what I've been going through. I'm this number, I'm that number, I'm this number. You know what I'm saying? And you see yourself in all of those things, in all of those places. So I think this is such great work, right? Because we've come wired with so many things, right, from our childhood. And we moved our way through the body center, we moved our way through the heart center. And so we find ourselves in the head center. In the head center, you have the observer, the loyal skeptic, and who else?
The observer, the loyal skeptic, and the optimist.
And the optimist.
Yeah.
Tell me about the optimist.
But that's the one I was mentioning earlier, the seven.
The seven, the
Yeah,
enthusiast. So yes.
enthusiast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So sevens believe head center is about using your head as the way that you process, analyze information,
Everything's
all of that.
logic. Yes.
Very logical. Although sevens don't often look to people like they are head types, they might seem like they're more heart types. But sometimes it's just that they know how to talk about emotions while staying in their heads. So it sounds they're saying the words, but they're really like in their heads. Anyways, sevens are known as the enthusiast, and the story here is I have to keep life okay. I have to be optimistic. I have to be I just can't dip below okay. It's got to be this and up. I cannot allow myself to dip below whatever is considered okay. So a lot of the energy for sevens is spent in the future, like planning for planning and dreaming of possibilities that could happen. A lot of the energy is spent around reframing. So because life is never just the good. So when the
Yeah.
hard things happen, A 7 will reframe. Well, at least it could have
Mm.
been worse.
Mm.
At least this didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that like mental function of reframing all the bad and trying to, I heard it described once as like walking around with a pocket full of silver linings to throw at every cloud you see,
Mm.
make it a little better, at least, Um, and that's part of how the type functions to maintain like a level of optimism about things that are outside of their control. Now, what they avoid is anything that feels like pain or suffering or limitations. And it's not that 7s cannot be present with pain or limitations. It is that the core fear is that they will be stuck and then deprived of everything good. So there's
Mm-hmm.
fear that if, and again, it's often as all of them are tied back to childhood, but if there's an experience of having, I can't tell you how often I've worked with 7s who have the same story of their parents getting divorced when they were kids. But there wasn't any like, no one actually helped them process,
Mm-hmm.
feelings that came with that. And so they went into this. Actually, it was really fun. I had 2 Christmases, I had 2 birthdays,
Yeah, I've
like,
heard that many
like this
times.
big
Yes.
party.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in adulthood, when I meet them and I'm working with them, it's like, oh, there was so much pain and grief there, but I didn't know how to handle it. And I felt like I would be stuck there forever. And that fear of being stuck is what keeps them fighting to avoid anything that feels like pain, suffering, and limitation, and trying to curate life within their resources, within their means, for whatever feels optimistic.
People, please. You may have not gotten on this conversation tonight, but you're going to want to share this conversation with your friend, with your auntie, with your family member, with your uncle, with your brother. Somebody in your life needs to hear this conversation that we are having tonight with Chichi Agorom. In case you do not know, in case you have missed it, she has a great book, The Enneagram for Black Liberation. What is she talking about? She's trying to get us free. And going to church is not the only way to be free. Going to church, going to synagogues, I don't care what your religious faith path is. It's not the only way to be free. There are other ways to be free as well. I want us all to be free, and I want us to use all the tools that it's going to take for us to get free. Please make sure that you purchase this book. You can purchase it on Amazon. Make sure that you get into the giveaway on tonight. We are going to give away this book, Pound Beyond the Gatekeepers. Make sure that you put that all one word so that you can win Pound Beyond the Gatekeepers. Now, there are two other places that we have to go before we close. We want you to stay with us. We want you to share so that somebody else can get in on it. There's still some helpful information that people can experience. Someone has asked the question, could these 7 armors, I'm not sure why they're saying
I
7.
was laughing at that question. Could the
Yeah,
7
okay.
members be different mind frames to 7 days?
7 days of the week, one for Monday and so on.
Well, the thing is, there are 9, so
Right.
I don't know what we would do with the remaining 2.
Right. Okay, here's another question. With so many people into horoscopes, can you explain how Enneagram is different?
Oh, interesting. This is okay. I'm not an expert on the horoscopes, but I would
That's okay.
say that from my understanding of how those are supposed to be used, it's kind of like this is a picture of what is happening in the sky on this day. And so these
Mm-hmm.
are some themes you might notice in your week or your day. And the Enneagram is more about being able to get to your core self, your true self. And being able to understand the stories, the patterns, the emotional habits, mental habits that you've used to survive, but that can also keep you separate from your true full self. So it's not predictive. I don't think astrology is supposed to be predictive either, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like here's a box, like you're an Aries and this is what this means about you. You're a
Mm-hmm.
9 and this is what this means about you. Because everyone's family context, trauma history, country that you grew up in, state within that, like local community that you grew up in, religious context, all those things impact the way your type structure shows up. So you might have people who actually look a lot different behaviorally, but actually identify with the same core story. But it's all these different elements that impact the way it shows up. So I hope that was a helpful response to that.
I think it was a very helpful response. So let me get to the last two, I
Mhm.
think, right?
Yep.
The observer and the loyal skeptics.
Yes. So the observer, type 5, the core story here is that I have to be. Now, in my book, I say knowledgeable. If I were to edit the book, I would add in self-sufficient. But I have to be knowledgeable and self-sufficient in order to be safe. I didn't say this when I was giving you the overview of the head types, but the core need here is for safety and security for 6s, 7s, and 5s. And so for 7s, that optimism is a way to stay safe. If the world is unsafe out there, if I just think positive thoughts, I'll be okay. For the 5, the way to stay safe, 5s believe the world is a place where people ask for a lot and don't give enough back in return. So they're afraid of being depleted. And so the best way to stay safe is to try to be self-sufficient. Like, I can meet all my own needs. I don't want to have to need you, because you will ask for too much and deplete me. And then also knowledge as a form of safety. Like, the more I know, the safer I feel, because I can be prepared to like kind of manage the chaos of the world out there, right? So 5s avoid not knowing. It brings up a feeling of emptiness inside of them, because they really do believe that most 5s talk about feeling like they're just like a walking head. And so they really believe that all of them, all they are is up here in the head space. And so when they don't know something, it brings up a sense of emptiness. Like, who am I outside of this role I play, or this person I am that has all the answers? There's something else they avoid: other people's demands. They tend to experience, like, even if it's somebody saying, hey, how was your day? Sometimes for a 5, that can be experienced as an intrusion, because they're very sensitive to the environment and sensitive to, they're very private people, they tend to be. And so even if it's like someone trying to help, that can feel like an intrusion to them. So they tend to want to avoid other people's demands. And then quickly, the 6 is the loyal skeptic on the Enneagram. And 6s, this is the one type where we have 2 variations of type. So the core story with the 6 is, I have to stay vigilant. I have to be hyper vigilant in a world that is unsafe. I have to make sure that I am scanning the environment for potential threats, and that I have a plan. So they, 6s might be planning for 10 steps ahead of where we are right now. They're like, prepared for every possible situation, because they're always anticipating what could go wrong and how do I need to be prepared for it. And so a lot of their energy goes towards that. What they avoid, loyalty is also really important to 6s, being loyal to whether it's somebody else, a religion, a group, because they are afraid that they cannot trust themselves, that they don't have what it takes internally to actually be safe in the world. So I have to find something else, someone else to tell me, outside of myself, to say, these are the rules to follow. This is how you do it. This is how you stay safe. So they will often be looking for authority figures or other people to be loyal to as a way to stay safe. And so then part of what they try to avoid is messing up those relationships, because it's kind of like the pack animal mentality. Like, if I'm part of the pack, I'm safe. If I'm by myself in the woods, I'm easy target. So I want to stay with the pack so I remain safe. So a lot of that energy goes towards being loyal. At the same time, though, they don't trust people. So it's like, I want to be loyal to you to stay safe, but I don't trust you. So I'm testing you. And I am like, vigilant even with you, to be like, do you mean what you say? Like, are you actually who you say you are? Am I gonna, so there's that energy of, I can't actually ever really relax into trusting that this person really is here for me, because I have to keep testing them. I have to stay vigilant at all times.
Somebody said, Bishop Elect Sonia, 6 are the ones who pack 6 bags for an overnight trip.
Yes, and we all will think that's too much until something happens and they have everything you need. So they're always prepared. You go on a road trip, they have every possible thing you might need for every scenario. If car breaks down, I'm prepared. If we run out of food, I'm prepared. Whatever the situation is. Yeah.
Powerful. This is powerful, you all. The last thing I want to say is that as you close each chapter after each Enneagram section, this is where the work begins. And so this is not just about reading a book. This is also about you practicing. This is also about you working on yourself. And you have the sections broken down that are fierce, like notice, pause, allow it, allow stress and security movements, somatic profile, journal prompts, visualizations, community practice. Like, really, Chichi, you giving our people Black liberation, you giving us therapy for free, right? You're giving us what we need. Like, if you can't afford a therapist, you don't have Medicaid, you don't have Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Blue Horizon, get this book. She trying to help. She trying to help you, and all you gotta do is pay for the cost of the book. And if it get real good to you, you can't afford the insurance, you can go take one of her classes. Like, this is like the real deal. Like, I feel like people keep talking about, oh, there's a wave of mental health and therapists and this and that. Like, I think that that's important, right? And like, a lot of the things that the Enneagram is talking about is really about who we are as a person, and how some of us, I'm not going to speak for everybody, have found ourselves in trap doors within our own self, right? Things that have been going on since childhood trauma that we have, that we brought up all the way through to whatever age that we are now. And what Chichi is doing, in my opinion, is helping us to open the door, right? The door is not locked. It never was locked. But we were so afraid to come outside of that door. And we're still sitting, some of us, inside of our own locked cages, our own. Maybe we didn't put ourselves in that cage. Maybe it didn't have anything to do with us, but we're still there, however we got there. And Chichi has found a way to help us get liberated and get out of those cages that we find ourselves in. I just have to say that I am just overwhelmed. She has some groups, her groups for Black folks, www.chichiagorom.com/at, that's AT hyphen ease. Okay, now I'll say it again, but Pastor Sue will put it in all of the chats and comment sections, because you need these kind of conversations. Mm-hmm. You need this is a movement by itself. And I hope that what Beyond the Gatekeepers is offering is, we're offering liberation in every single way. However you can get yourself free, however you can get free, whoever you need to connect to and whatever you need to connect to get freedom. I want you to do that. And I believe that this is a wonderful offering given by a wonderful sister for everybody, mm-hmm. right? Because you say it early on, like, this liberation is not just for one group of people. Yeah. And this is a powerful work. So, like, I want people to attach themselves. Chichi, I want to give you the last words before we go to our advertisers.
Thank you so much for all of those kind words. That means a lot to hear. And yeah, I think I would just say, part of why I think this is important and part of why I wrote the book is that we don't have to wait until some future time when the world is more just and more, whatever, in order to be able to access ease and liberation and freedom and joy within our bodies. One of the questions I ask often in the book is like, when was your first experience of joy? What does joy feel like in your body? And for a lot of people who hold marginalized identities, that's a hard question, because we're so armored all the time that we don't have enough space to feel joy, to play, to experience ease. And so that is my hope. That is my invitation, is that doing this work is realizing and honoring the fact that I deserve access to wholeness and healing and liberation and joy and play today, not in the future when things are finally equitable. If that doesn't come in my lifetime, I still am deserving of ease and joy and wholeness and healing. And this is one of the ways. There are many paths, but this is one of the ways that has been really helpful for me in being able to create space to say, I am more than one thing. I don't have to be just one thing in order to survive. I get to be the fullness of who I am in spaces that are safe and when it's with just me. So that is what I hope to invite y'all into. And I hope that it has been a beneficial conversation for you.
Such a blessing. We appreciate you so much. I think I read somewhere that somebody said that this work that you are doing is justice work. But I like to take it a little further and say that this work that you are doing is holy work. And this is the work, this is a sacred work. This is the work that we need, that our souls need, so that we can move from the places that have us chained and bound, and so that we can live a life of ease and a life of refreshing and a life of, all of the things that we think about in our mind. But and again, I told somebody earlier today, and I was talking to them, I was like, all you have to do is really cross the street. And there's something that's got us stuck at this light that won't let us cross the street. And so I'm hoping that everybody can cross the street into justice and ease and holy work and sacredness, for their own lives, for their own selves. This is not about anyone else. This is about you. This is about kids. It's about young adults, teenagers. It's about adults. It's about Black. It's about white, whoever it is that needs to receive this liberation. That's what this is about. And so we welcome you to purchase the book. I'll say it again for the last time. And we welcome you to put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so you can win this book tonight. Such an incredible conversation with Chichi Agorom. There's a free book giveaway, and we are grateful for the work that her hands have found to do. Thank you for watching Beyond the Gatekeepers tonight. Current events through a theological and justice-informed lens. We want to take you to some of our advertisement tonight. So we thank you for supporting Beyond the Gatekeepers. And like anything, it takes work and sacrifice. And we are hoping that this conversation meant something to you. If it did, you can send a donation to $ Cash App. I'm sorry, to $ TFAM Annual, which is our Cash App. That's $ TFAM Annual, or to PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAM Justice. We do this work, and this work is, I don't do this work for pay. I do this work for free, but in order for us to be seen in the world, we do have to pay someone to do this work. And then, we are just grateful for, we have to have advertisement. We have to get the show out. We want to elevate this show to another level, so that we can be on streaming on a consistent basis. And we want you to help us to do that. And so thank you for your support. We also want you to meet us in Atlanta. Our presiding Bishop Yvette A. Flender is inviting you to come to Atlanta, Georgia, July 5th to the 9th for our TFAM Holy Convocation 2023. Our theme this year is Miracles, Signs, and Wonders. That's Miracles, Signs, and Wonders. And you can register for our convocation. Our general early registration is $150. General regular registration after May 1st is $175. On-site registration is $200, and daily registration is $65 a day. We will be at the Sheraton Atlanta Hotel, 165 Cortlandt Street, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia. And the room rates are $129 a night. There are key events every night. Wednesday night is the appointment of the Global Presbyterians. Thursday night is new ordination and new church affiliates. Friday night, although it says live recording, we're actually having a white party. Saturday during the day is the Episcopal consecration for those of us that are bishop-elects. Saturday evening, we're having a celebration in song for Founders Night in honor of Bishop Flender. And Sunday morning is the Holy Communion and anointing and sending service. And so we want you to come and be a part of these things. The schedule is almost done. We will post that up You can go to our website at www.radicallyinclusive.com to see all of the information that I just said. Please support the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries on behalf of our presiding bishop. All right, we do have something to give away. What is that something? We have this great and wonderful book by Chichi Agorom, The Enneagram for Black Liberation. We want you to win this book tonight. And so, if you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, then you are in it to win it. Pastor Sue, let's go. Our winner is a faithful person who tunes in to Beyond the Gatekeepers all the time in the person of Minister Sandy Hudson from Paris, California. Minister Sandy, thank you so much for joining us tonight with Beyond the Gatekeepers. And I probably do have your address, but do me a favor and put it inside Beyond the Gatekeepers inbox so that we can make sure that we get that book to you. Thank you for your support tonight. Thank you again, Chichi. We say congratulations, yes, to Minister Sandy. And remember, you can still share this conversation. These videos are up on the Beyond the Gatekeepers page, up on Bishop Flunder's page. And then if you can go to Spotify. And sometime tonight, I guess by midnight or so, or even before then, they will have this whole conversation up on Spotify. So we're excited about that. If you need to go back, you want to listen. And I would just absolutely say also, like, even if you want to have a group, and you have that group, join Chichi Agorom's group so that you can find out more. I want you to support her and her work. I believe in Black liberation. I believe in Chichi Agorom, and I believe in this work. Thank you so much for joining us. We say God bless you and have a great night.